Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Fortunately, strike / lockout / economy coming to a screeching halt. Looks like it's been averted. A deal has been reached between the rail barons and the workers who make them billions of dollars in profit. And look, the way it looks, and this is amazing to me, that in 2022, this was the main sticking point. The railroad workers, the conductors, the engineers, they're going to get to see the doctor and schedule an appointment. Yep, it looks like it, and we're going to find out here in a little bit, but it looks like that they may have the right to schedule an appointment, actually keep that appointment. Wow. Now, the weird thing is this is a huge victory if this is actually true, but in this day and age, in this day and age, shouldn't be this big of a deal. Victory. And this is why elections, my union brothers and sisters, this is why elections have consequences. This is why elections matter. When you have someone who's friendly in the White House, who wants to see both sides come to a good deal and wants workers to come out on top and do well, this is what you get. Now, I gotta ask the question: what do you think would have happened if the orange guy would have been there? The guy who says he's all in favor of right to work, the guy who appointed people to the National Labor Relations Board who were just horrible, people who were clearly anti-labor, anti-worker, the guy who appointed the person to the Supreme Court, who nominated the guy for the Supreme Court, who destroyed the public sector union rights with the Janus decision. What do you think would have happened? What kind of insanity, hyperbole, bizarre kind of social media insanity, what do you think we'd have gotten? Let that sink in for a second when you think about going to vote in several weeks, and then when you think about 2024. As I said, Joe Biden, in my view, the most pro-labor, pro-worker president of my lifetime, and it's showing not just in the policies that they're pushing, not just the investment in our infrastructure, the reshoring of manufacturing, the looking to the future for dealing with something on climate change, not just that, but actually the deeds. Not a lot of words, and this is what I love about Joe Biden: action. As where we had 4 years of nothing but words, nothing but the best words, nothing but fabulous words. But action. That's the important thing. So good stuff. And we're going to talk about that here in a bit, because maybe the reporting, not all it's cracked up to be, so we're going to go to the source and find out how this went. Also the news today. And this is where, Democrats, what? Why? Evidently, Chuck Schumer has said that the vote on codifying same-sex marriage into law, we're going to push that off. We're going to push that off until after the midterms. And I go, maybe I don't understand. Maybe understand what the Republicans would have done. And this is where the fight in the party, I think, has to come back. They don't have the 10 Republican votes to say that people who love each other and want to commit their lives together should have the same rights as everybody else. And look, not my issue, just so you know. I don't care, to be honest. This is one of those moments where you go, I don't know why you'd want to get married, but good for you. Go ahead. Everyone should have the right to. Doesn't matter to me. I don't think that, the same-sex marriage, it does anything to ruin the sanctity of my marriage. As I love telling this story because, I remember the first time this issue came to the forefront. This was years ago. I was in a diner with a bunch of my truck driver buddies. We were in a convoy up north, and one of the guys was angry, viscerally angry that those blah, 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 going to ruin the sanctity of my marriage. Now, this is a guy, I understand, he doesn't know any gay people. He doesn't know any same-sex couples. No No guy is going to come up and ask him to marry him. This was just nowhere that he had to deal with. But somehow he believed that others having rights somehow are going to affect him, are going to trickle down to him. And I let him finish his rant. And then I said to him, I go, so let me get this straight. Two people you know getting married is going to harm your relationship with your wife and children living in Pennsylvania. And he's like, it's going to ruin the sanctity of my marriage. I go, but the girlfriend and the child in Massachusetts, that's not? And you go, explain to me the hypocrisy? Because while spewing religious nonsense about, all the whatever when they talk about, the adultery part didn't seem to really come into his head. Didn't connect with him. And this is where I'm at. Look, I bless you, man. If people want to get married, God bless them. I wish them the best. And this is where I come back to on every issue. You have the right to pursue your happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Until your rights infringe on mine, I'm happy for it. And I see in no way, shape, or form how this would infringe on anyone's rights. But the Democrats, again, are going to push this down the road because they don't have the 10 Republicans needed to break the filibuster. And you go, wouldn't this be an interesting campaign issue? Wouldn't this be one of those interesting kind of things to be able to hold out to the American people and go, hey, same-sex marriage is fairly popular. People are like, hey, like me, I don't really care, but I think it should be legal. I think people should have their right to do what they want to do and not have government, like Republicans say, overarching government in our lives. Wouldn't this be a good campaign issue? Wouldn't this be one of those things going, hey, these are the people who voted against it. Maybe we should vote them out? Just kind of throwing that out there. Or maybe you pressure them into voting for it before the election so they can save their own hide. Like we're seeing a lot of Republicans trying to vacillate on issues right before our very eyes because they don't want you really knowing what they believe. Just kind of throwing that out there. So I think this is a mistake, and I think Schumer should hear it. So make sure you contact his office. But I got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, going to talk about the rail situation. Fortunately, as I said, no strike. That is a good thing, or so it appears. It looks like there's a tentative agreement. We're going to see what the membership says, but I'm feeling a little confident. And when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more. Stick around. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're working people from the talk.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So our tweet of the day from right-wing mouthpiece and commentary Ben Shapiro, the crack-addled little rat. This is what corporate shills get you, man. Shapiro tweeted out, the entire Democratic union strategy is: 1, unions spend billions to get Democrats elected. 2, unions threaten to strike in advance of elections. 3, Democrats force through an absolute sweetheart deal for unions. Declare victory. You pay for it. And, I look at this and I go, now remember, you got to remember what these folks were fighting for. And remember, when you hear things out of the mouths of corporate shills like Scrooge McWeasel there, a sweetheart deal in his world is maybe getting to make a doctor appointment and keep it. Maybe, I don't know, go to your child's parent-teacher conference. Maybe a baseball game or a concert, or maybe a little peace of mind, a day off. That in Scrooge McDuck land, that's a sweetheart deal. I'm here to talk about the sweetheart deal that the Biden folks and the union and the rail barons have come together on. I've asked Wes Exted to come talk with us. Wes is the owner and campaign organizer of the Fight for Two-Person Cruise campaign. He's also one of the principal guys over at the Smart Union Local 0445. Wes, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, sweetheart deal, Wes. You got a sweetheart deal. You got everything you could have ever asked for. Sweetheart deal.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and it definitely isn't just everything we asked for. There was some concessions on it, and actually we're the only ones that were actually negotiating. It seemed like the railroads were stuck on their side, just where they were and weren't going to move. So, when you were saying about the union spending all this money, it's kind of funny is they are spending so much more than us. The companies and their PAC funds and everything else. I mean, what we can spend is just and what we can gather together just through our membership is just so much smaller than what they can. And so it's kind of funny that he wants to pull out that we spend so much money.
Yeah, but this is what they always do. This is the MO, because they know the division works, and pitting people against each other is what they do very well. In fact, I find it interesting that the railroad baron of the past, Jay Gould, is often quoted with "I can easily pay half the working class to murder the other half" quote. And this is kind of that division. We got to pit us against you because, hey, you're getting something that we're paying for, even if it is something as simple as being able to see a doctor and keep that appointment.
Absolutely. And we've been fighting for this for quite a while. And since the 2019, 2020, we've been fighting for this contract that's here. And, with their money, you see the media pop out. It's always, hey, any issue that we have, or the worker issues, whatever, we're asking for too much. We're asking, if you listen to their propaganda, we work less than 40 hours a week and we make more than $130,000 a year, which is just, if we had it that well, I don't think we'd be complaining at all. Most of us are working, 68, 80 hours a week. And when we're done with one day, we're staying in a hotel, coming back the next day, and we're home for like 10 to 12 hours before we have to go back, and these guys want to act like we're just part-timers, they forced this on us by cutting about 45,000 workers since our last contract.
Wow.
And what they're doing is requiring less people to do more work, and I think we see that across multiple different industries, with how do we make money? Cut the workers, make them do more, and we're going to see more profit.
More for them, less for us is what they always do. Now, as I understand it, and help me here because there's a tentative agreement. That doesn't mean it's agreed to. Your membership hasn't voted on it. That's coming. But the major issues, as I remember them, being this having a bit of time to see a doctor, maybe not be disciplined if you're rushed to the hospital having a heart attack and being admitted to the hospital. Maybe that is a good thing. We talk about. I understand that's been addressed, and then the healthcare costs. At the end of the contract, there was some talk of maybe it going completely crazy. They've done something on that. Are those the two biggest issues that were the sticking point, as I get it?
Yeah, I think we had come to, we'd always like more money, but I think we'd come to a reasonable agreement on the money issue. The things that they were coming short on for sure were attendance issues. And I'd like to see, what we get in writing to kind of say where we're at on that. I am very appreciative of Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, President Joe Biden coming in and being on our side for this, because I don't think we would have gotten anything without them. I know that, for instance, Bernie blocking a resolution to prevent us from striking was huge. I mean, that nothing changes without that. So, but anyway, just for an instance of how this works, we get 30 points for a career where I work, and I had to lay off to go to the birth of my daughter. That was 4 points, and it takes me 2 weeks of working on call for me to get those 4 points back. Just for me going to see the birth of my daughter, and I'm not even the extreme example of this. And so it was something we had to fight back against, and it's something we had to come together to try to defeat.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Yeah.
No, because that's an important thing. Because I had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, "Well, this is just about greed." And when I would throw back at them, "No, this is," as someone who's been on call myself, and I understand what kind of anger, frustration, what kind of blood pressure, misery that that phone ringing at 2:00 in the morning will bring you. We at least had after six trips, we had 48. After 7 trips, you got a 56. After 11, you got a 72. You had time that you could plan off. You guys don't have that, which is amazing to me. So it goes back to that frame of do you live to work or work to live? And it sounds like you guys are just living to work.
Yeah, and I mean, our families feel that way as well. I mean, I don't know how many things I've missed. I was able to take some FMLA time to be home when my daughter was born, but since I had to go back after the end of my FMLA, how many things I miss because I'm gone. I'm home for 10 hours at a time, and how much that puts on my wife, who's pretty much a single mom, for a week as I'm gone, and hopefully we can get some time off with some of what we got negotiated here, and we can start making people fathers and mothers again versus just people who pay the bills.
Just people who bring home a check. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with Wes Ekstead. He's the owner and campaign organizer for the Fight for Two-Person Cruise campaign. Check out their website, fightfortwopersoncruise.com. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is something that's been going on for years. I remember the first time I came across it was in 2013. That's how long this fight has been going on, and it doesn't make any sense to me. You're talking about a train that's miles long, and you're going to have one person in charge of it. That seems, it seems unsafe.
Well, it is unsafe, and they're not doing this because they think it's going to be plenty safe with one person up there. They're doing this, just like I said earlier, to cut costs, and they don't care if that cost-cutting measure hinders anyone else or makes it less safe. Because, for instance, now we're running. We used to run 1 to 1.5 mile long trains. Now we're running 3 to 4 mile long trains. And so now we cannot fit between crossings, right? We used to be able to fit maybe between this road and this road. We'd be able to stop a train and wait for a signal. Now we can't do that anymore. So the only way that we can cut that crossing or split the train is with 2 people. I need an engineer on the head end, and I need to be, as a conductor, on the ground to detach those cars and separate them so I can allow emergency vehicles through or allow people through in any situation, right? And they don't care if that is an issue. They don't care if you're sitting. We've had multiple stories of days, not just hours, of them parking these trains because they can't get them any further because they're so big and can't get in the yard, what have you. And they're parking them in towns and for days at a time, blocking multiple crossings, making it impossible for people to get help if they need an emergency situation.
Now, the reality is I spend a lot of time in and out of rail yards here in the area, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Just the other day, I sat for an hour and a half waiting for it just to cross the track so I could get into the rail yard. And that was just getting into it because they've grown just so enormous. And I don't know how that's safe, and I'm struggling with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at Europe, for instance, they purposely make their trains shorter so that they can stop in a shorter amount of time, so that they can react. Well, here in the U.S., we're allowing them to just double or triple the size of an original train that already had trouble. If you're hauling coal, for instance, those coal trains just for a mile and a half might be 18,000 tons. Stopping that on rail with steel wheels, it's just not. It's going to take us maybe a few miles to get stopped. So your reaction time has to be that much quicker, which again gives us more need for 2 sets of eyes up in the cab. If we can see, something on the tracks, we might be able to stop. And we've had cases where we've been able to stop and be able to save people's lives. So.
I want to go back to a second and wrap up here on this point because, Ben Shapiro, the right-wing mouthpiece here, our corporate shill of the day says that, this is a sweetheart deal for you guys. And it's the Democrats who delivered this sweetheart deal to these greedy union members, and that we're all going to pay for it. The we're all going to pay for it part is kind of interesting to me because I look at the profitability of the railroads, and the other day I saw the fact that last year they had a record-breaking year of $20 billion in profit. That's billion with a B. That's a lot of zeros. The CEO of the companies of Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern made over $40 million in compensation each. I'm sorry. I'm not going on the frame that this is a sweetheart deal for you guys that's going to cost us. When you got CEOs making $40 million, I'm sorry. I'm not getting it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when I mentioned that statistic earlier with the 45,000 people cut, since that time, since that statistic started, they've also made $140 billion. So they're cutting back workers, making us do more while making $140 billion. And during that time, we're working during a pandemic. We're essential, right? We're essential workers. They need us. It was impossible to get necessary safety issues looked at from the railroad's perspective while this was going on, clean cabs, situations like that. And, what we've won in this contract, or what we may have won in this contract, is, unpaid time off. One thing to remember too is we don't have weekends. People forget that. When I take a day off and it's cost me 4 points, that's like taking a weekend day. Only it's costing me 4 points. So it's not like I just get a free day off. Now we're looking at maybe getting some free unpaid time off, which is what we need. Because it's getting so bad that we've got guys with 20 plus years quitting the job. This used to be a job that people, I mean, if you got on the railroad, you were set, and that's something you stayed with for your career. So. Yeah,
I mean, the fact that, I always say that often that unions fought for and got us, we lowly workers, a weekend. You guys still don't have a weekend. And this is what you're fighting for. I know I said last question, but you brought something up. You brought the essential worker frame up on the frontline hero frame, all the things we threw at you during the pandemic. Nice titles, nice pat on the back, not real any substance to it. How does it make you feel when you see corporate America and their shills saying that, you got this sweetheart deal, you shouldn't have these meager minor victories?
It's definitely, we've been insulted, and I think that's what gave us, so much ire, so much an ability to get this campaign going, for this contract. I think they've, we didn't come at this lightly. They've been spitting in our eye for a long time. It's as through the pandemic, through after that, they actually put in the PEB that labor doesn't actually contribute to their profits. Their profits are because of their risk, their investment. When we've got actually just recently a few brothers of ours died just this week, and it's their risk, though, their investment, it's causing all this, when really we're the ones risking, we're the ones investing, we're the ones that risked ourselves through the pandemic, and I think hopefully this contract will give us what we deserve.
You do, absolutely, and that you've earned. Wes, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Wes Ekstead, he is the owner and campaign organizer of the Fight for the Two-Person Cruise campaign. Make sure you check out their website, fightfortwopersoncruise.com. Quick break, right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1970. That was the day 350,000 GM workers kicked off a 67-day strike. It was the largest auto strike since the end of World War II. According to historian Jefferson Cowie, it was likely the costliest. In his book, Stayin' Alive, Cowie notes that the strike cost GM $1 billion in profits and nearly bankrupted the union. But he adds it, quote, lacked the proletarian drama that fired journalists' hearts. For Cowie, it was an example of labor management cooperation, a civilized affair. But historian Jeremy Breacher points out that the Wall Street Journal drew different conclusions about the strike at the time. In a series of articles, the paper noted that labor management cooperation during the strike served ironically to get workers back to work. A long and costly strike served a number of functions. It wore down strikers' expectations. After 8 or 10 weeks, workers would be amiable to terms they initially rejected. It also provided an escape valve for built-up frustration over working conditions. And a long strike served to coalesce internal union factions around a common enemy, strengthening the union's leadership in the process. For management, a long and costly strike lent hope that workers would be reluctant to strike in the future. But Breacher notes these ideas about workers' motives nearly backfired. Strikers simply wouldn't budge on their demands. They made gains in wages, pensions, and cost of living allowances. And they were finally able to retire after 30 years. But critics argued the agreement fell short of initial demands, and workers lacked more say in the workplace. This would be a key issue in the many strikes and wildcats in the years to come. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
What makes a newspaper great? Many say it's having street-savvy reporters and editors with the integrity to shine the light of investigative journalism on the power structure's abuses. But no, says Fred Ryan, top executive of the Washington Post, the secret is attendance. Ryan, a corporate manager and former Ronald Reagan staffer, was handpicked to be CEO of the legendary paper by Jeff Bezos in 2014 when the Amazon billionaire bought the Post. But on Ryan's watch, readership is in decline, which he blames on newsroom sluggards who don't spend enough time in the office. So he's become the hall monitor, measuring reporters' productivity by their office attendance. Fred seems unaware that a good reporter's real work is out on the beat, not sitting in front of a computer. No doubt he would have fired Woodward and Bernstein for being out of office so often to meet with Deep Throat to uncover Nixon's Watergate scandal. In fairness, though, he apparently has a two-part plan to boost team spirit. 1, eliminate 100 reporters. And 2, judge the output of those remaining by counting the number of video conferences they attend each week. But that's hardly the totality of Ryan's innovations. The big news is that he's hired not 1 but 2 high-dollar PR firms to create a cutting-edge, quote, branding strategy for the Post. Already, they've come up with a spiffy new corporate slogan, "We don't just break news, we break ground." Wow, how great is that? Never mind that some wags have changed the second line to "We break wind." This is Jim Hightower saying, when overpaid incompetents like Ryan substitute slogans and computer metrics for real solutions, they're admitting that they are the problem. They don't know how to motivate and manage a creative workforce. They should resign in embarrassment.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, good news on the rail front. Where's the sign that Joe Biden did this? Where's that idiotic sign that the Republicans were slapping everywhere? Because understand, without Biden and without Bernie Sanders, this doesn't get done, and those workers continue to get screwed over. And I guarantee you, if you had the former guy, my union brothers and sisters, if the Orange Menace were still in the White House, you know that the Wicker legislation and the resolution they wanted to use to force those workers back to work and not to strike, you know that would have happened. You know it would have happened. So my union brothers and sisters, you should probably think about who you vote for. Matters. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day, our favorite reporter, Sarah Burris. She's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. A strike not going to happen on Friday. Or at least
I know. And you're right. It totally would never have happened under Trump because he doesn't care. And he, I don't think, would understand this idea of having medical leave. And, simple things like that normal everyday people really want in their jobs.
Yeah, the things that, most of us in the working class have come to take for granted, like weekend.
Yeah. It's the little things in life.
It's the little things, you know, maybe scheduling, going to that dentist you really don't want to go to every 6 months. I mean, think about that for a second. Things that we take for granted. We're going to be able to get our checkups. We're going to be able to see our kids, you know, soccer, golf, baseball games, concerts, whatever, occasionally, not all of them, but, you know, occasionally you get to see something. They get none of that because they're stuck in a hotel somewhere.
Exactly. And I mean, yes, this is an important workers' rights moment that I feel like we've succeeded, but we're also facing like some serious crap coming out of the pandemic and the inflation stuff. And so the idea that an entire country of transit would have been shut down, I mean, that's more than just a whole group of workers. That's the whole country.
Yeah,
and
but see,
these people are important.
Absolutely.
And they deserve to have, you know, our respect and our care and our kindness, because they really matter.
Yep.
They really, really matter.
They are truly essential.
They are absolutely essential. And the thing about Joe Biden is there's no such thing as non-essential to Joe Biden.
There you go. Now, you know, the thing that gets me is, you know, I hear the you know, the little weasel, that Ben Shapiro, saying, well, the union's got a sweetheart deal and you're going to pay for it. Yeah, having a day to go see a doctor, somehow that's a sweetheart deal. Now, look, if they were asking for the moon and the sun and the peanut butter sandwich to go with it, then you go, maybe if they were asking for unreasonable things, you know, like an actual weekend. You could see the division, but they weren't even asking for things that were unreasonable. Yeah. I mean, that's the part that gets me. They had a leverage point that they could have really asked for some really, really good things. Like, you know, maybe a 40-hour work week. Imagine that.
Oh man, seriously. And I remember, was it like yesterday or the day before that the management was saying, oh, we got them by the nads, you guys. And then, you know,
yeah,
clearly they didn't.
Yeah. Speaking of by the short hairs, Trump having to shell out $3 million to a lawyer in advance.
Holy cats!
What's with that?
Man, so this
is his credit not good? Is his credit not good?
Right. The guy does not like to pay legal bills, and I think that's one of the major reasons why you know, a lot of people don't want to work for him, because one, he's not going to pay his bills, and two, your career's kind of over after Donald Trump because he's going to eat it. And so I don't know if this dude is who's a former solicitor general for the state of Florida. I don't know if the $3 million was to pay him for doing a heck of a lot of paperwork for the next, you know, couple years, or if this was him basically saying, all right, this is what my career is worth. So I want the check now. I want it up front, and
it better cash.
Yeah, and I'm not doing anything till it cashes.
It better not bounce. No, seriously, I mean, you got. It's amazing that you've got to talk about that, but you look at this guy's history, not good.
Really bad, and not just on lawyers. Like, the dude's got a bad history of paying contractors and workers, and, you know, pretty much anybody he ever hires to do a project. You know, that's a big problem for him, trying to find enough people to be able to do the job, because in New York, he's just so, and Jersey too, he's notorious for not paying people.
Oh yeah, I remember 2015 and 16, we had on the program, you know, tons of contractors who said, you know, we did work here, we did work there, and we got stiffed and it cost us our business. There were, the landscape was littered with folks that got screwed over by Trump, so it's not surprising. But speaking of people that he brought in to do some work, whatever happened to that John Durham guy? Wasn't there supposed to be some kind of grand, you know, they're going to prove the conspiracy hoax on Russia. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it turns out maybe not so much. I think Durham has indicted 3 people over the course of 3 years. Is it 3 years now? Almost 3 years. The grand jury is about to expire. And one of the people that he indicted, I guess, did a small plea deal. Sussman was acquitted. And then the next trial for the dude starts in, I think, next month. And that dude is basically being charged with lying to the FBI about saying that he didn't talk to somebody when he talked to somebody. And it's like, that's it? That's all you got?
So
that's the entire attempt at bringing down the Mueller investigation, and 3 years, and all they could find was, this researcher lied to somebody.
Or just didn't remember. Or just, didn't remember. Because this is the argument that the Trump people make with all of their interactions. I'm not going to say collusion. I'm not going to say coordination. Let's say interactions with Russian spies. Because there are a lot of documented parts. Maybe they forgot those. Maybe they forgot.
Maybe. It's just so crazy to me that we have spent millions and millions of dollars. And
why is it crazy? Dude, why is it crazy, Sarah? Why is that? This is the party who brought us Benghazi. Years of committee hearings, years of investigation, and got nothing.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we can expect whenever, if Republicans take over the House and the Senate, is another several years of just Benghazi hearings and, Mueller hearings, and everybody's getting indicted, whether they're guilty or not.
Oh, come on, Sarah. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They're strong stewards of the taxpayer dollar.
Oh, if only. If only. I mean, they still, the thing that makes me nuts is that these same people keep blaming Hillary Clinton, comparing her to Donald Trump for, she had this server where she was emailing people, and that's somehow the same thing as stealing physical documents, some of which were top secret classified, and taking them home with you. I mean, people don't see the difference between them.
It's a souvenir, like an ashtray. Needed a parting gift. Like when you were on a game show and you lose, they give you a crappy, version of the home game. This is kind of that. At least that seems to be the justification we're getting from Republican lawmakers who are like, it's not a big deal. Maybe it got mixed in with the paperwork. You've heard all of the excuses.
Honestly, I'm surprised that he didn't steal the bed out of the Lincoln bedroom or something. I mean, that frankly sounds like something that he would do, right?
Or maybe make another P-tape.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
I can't believe I said that. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. On that note, you're listening to The Rick Smith Show with her. Sarah Burris. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story. Does incredible work. You want to check that out, rawstory.com, the website. I highly, highly suggest it. The January 6th committee, evidently someone has said on the committee that a bunch of texts and documents from the Secret Service. Is this one of those moments? Because a lot of people think the Secret Service is who ratted Trump out for the classified information. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll find out. But maybe the Secret Service is finally coming around, or no.
I don't know about ratting Trump out. But the thing about the Secret Service is, after they were subpoenaed by the January 6th committee, they made this big, huge deal about, y'all didn't need to subpoena us. You could have just asked for it. Except that they have been asking for it for a really long time. And not only had they not gotten it, but they deleted so much stuff. And so a lot of that stuff still isn't there, but they have, now that they have been subpoenaed, been forced to turn over tons of stuff. So what Zoe Lofgren, Congresswoman Lofgren, said is that they're still going through a ton of stuff. And, she basically said it's everything. It's text messages, it's documents, it's emails, it's everything you can possibly think of. And, we talked to, I think it was Jim Himes too, who was just like, well, I gotta go because I gotta go read some stuff, is what he said. So, I mean, really, like, they're continuing to get it, and they're still reading it and going through it. And so I don't know how fast we're going to be able to learn about the Secret Service piece of all of this. But they have said that they're, Tony Ornato, Trump's BFF, who was in the Secret Service, he's going to come and testify in person. And Bob Engel is the other guy. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, this is a developing thing, and I was expecting the hearings to end at a certain point, but it seems like, well, they're going to continue because there are a lot of layers to this. And look, you can give Trump credit for one thing, and I do. You can see how bad this is an example of how bad governance works or doesn't, and this is an example of when Republicans have control, the kind of things they break.
It's that, and I think what continues to surprise me, and I don't even know why I'm surprised by it, but it's the I know that we sort of understood that Trump was corrupt, but the plethora of people, the unbelievable number of people who conspired together all across the country to make this thing happen just blows me away. I mean, from the fake electors to Republican elected officials to militia member. I mean, this is like nothing I have ever seen before. It's like the movie White House Down, where the sketchy Secret Service guy like gets on the hot list and finds like every single domestic terrorist in the country and then just brings them all together for one big action. It's kind of like that. It sort of feels like that.
It feels like a bad Hollywood movie, then, is what you're telling me.
It does.
Yeah, only
the kid stole the show in that movie, though. The end where she like is waving the flag for the bombers off. Oh, gets me every time. My patriot heart just flutters.
Do we have that flag waver? I mean, is there a happy ending to this story? Does the bad guy go to jail at this point? I mean, because I'm still clinging to the reality that Trump's going to have, there'll be no repercussions against Trump, at least on the January 6th stuff. The stuff in Georgia we can talk about in a second, maybe possibly something. I still don't know how you put an ex-president in jail. Do you have to put the Secret Service in jail with him too? I don't know, but I still don't think he's going to be charged. I don't think he's going to pay any real penalty for this other than some nuisance having to prepay his attorney fees.
Yeah, I wonder if it becomes like a thing where they have to do a house arrest and he just like can't leave a house, can't leave Trump Tower or something.
Yeah, can't leave his mansion in Florida and his golf course. Yeah, that's punishment.
Right?
Make him walk the golf course instead of ride a golf cart. How about that?
Well, you can only go so far from the ankle monitor device. So like with Michael Cohen, he couldn't leave his apartment more. I think he could leave once a week to like go get groceries and stuff. And there was an hour limit on it, and that was about it. So I don't think that he could move beyond, I don't know that he could necessarily go to the golf course, which would be just like sweet justice. But I think that there's enough here. I don't know if it's going to be January 6th. I think the documents thing is a BFD, I think that will be probably a bigger deal than anything else because especially if he has more documents, because Republicans so far have been, hemming and hawing about this. And they're like, well, why did it take them 18 months to get them from him? And it's like, dude, they still haven't gotten everything. And I mean, that's what the National Archives has said.
Yeah, and then this is why the House Oversight Committee is asking the archives, to send them a statement saying, yep, we got it all. And I don't think they're going to get that because we actually don't know how many ashtrays are missing.
Yeah, I don't think that we do. And like you said, the Fulton County stuff, I think that's going to be a thing.
So let's finish there because this is interesting to me because you got the Georgia DA who says, they find credible allegations of serious crimes being committed around this. Do you really see this Fani Willis being able to push this forward?
I do. I absolutely do. I don't know if it's necessarily Trump. You would think that getting him on tape, basically saying, I need you to find 780,000 votes.
No, I thought it was only 12,000. He needed the
11,780 votes, which is one more than we don't have.
Yes,
is what he said. But I think the major thing is, Mark Meadows went down there and was like demanding to try and get in to watch the counting, and he made a lot of demands, and I don't know if any of those have been taped. But there's a lot of text messages with Mark Meadows and stuff like that. Like there's some sketchy stuff going on with Meadows. I don't know why he hasn't been indicted for voting in 2 different states, because that's just straight up voter fraud. But yeah, like there's some, he's gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Or
He's wearing a wire, which is why they were. Did you see the picture, the mob picture from the golf course with a whole bunch of Trump people just kind of hanging around with no golf clubs? Kind of reminded me of the time that we did that with our labor history tour back in 2013, and we were out in where Blair Mountain is in West Virginia, and just a whole bunch of people, friends of Cole, came out of the shadows with their big hats and their sidearms. Claiming to be a road crew picking up trash without bags. It kind of was that kind of a sense to me, that kind of a feel.
Yeah, that's sketchy, dude.
Yeah.
Good God.
Thought I was going to die
One of the stories I heard about that is that he wanted to meet with his attorneys in Washington, but didn't want to go to their offices because he felt like it wasn't secure.
Yeah, like a golf course is secure.
Right?
And this guy was president. That's the part that's amazing to me. It is what it is. But Sarah, as always, amazing stuff. Hope folks will check out the website, rawstory.com. Check out the reporting of Sarah Burris, our favorite reporter. Sarah, thanks so much for taking time for us.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You as well, our good friend. Make sure you check out the work that she does there at rawstory.com. Quick break, right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931. That was the day that came to be known as the Invergordon Mutiny in Scotland. The global depression had begun to sweep across Europe. In response to the economic crisis, the British government began cutting the pay of public sector workers. This included those in the armed forces. This came at a time when more workers were joining the armed forces because of the rising unemployment that ravaged the private sector. For those in the Navy, the proposed pay cuts were 10% for officers and as high as 25% for those under the rank of petty officer. As news of the pay cuts spread, sailors at Invergordon held meetings to discuss their response. Invergordon, Scotland, had become an important harbor for the British fleet during World War I. The sailors decided to strike. On the day of the strike, several ships were scheduled to participate in exercises. But the sailors on 4 vessels refused to take their ships out of the harbor. Many men did not report for duty. Naval leaders gave in quickly, reducing the severity of the pay cuts. But many of the leaders of the strike faced reprisals. Some were jailed. Others were drummed out of the Navy. Spies for the Admiralty went below decks to monitor the sailors and report those who might cause future trouble. Government leaders tried to keep the news of the strike out of the news. But workers' rallies against public sector cuts spread to cities like Glasgow and London. The strike also caused a panic at the London Stock Exchange. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So, quick little update. We're going to be in Chicago on October 11th for a Greg Palast event. Going to show his movie Vigilantes. Also going to be in Minnesota on the 12th of October to do another event with Greg Palast in the middle of our Get Out the Vote Working Class Hero Tour as we move across Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and then back home. Should be an entertaining month. Should be lots of fun and excitement. And we've been getting tons of feedback from folks on, hey, come to our area and here's the story. And thank you for that. If you've got ideas of where in those states we should go, who we should talk to, what we should see, by all means, email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. We're in the finalizing stages of where we're going and kind of what we're doing. So get those responses in early. I do want to go back to for a moment, something we talked about earlier in the hour, that, without Joe Biden, you don't get this rail deal. Without Bernie Sanders, you don't get the Republicans from doing what their natural inclination is, and that is to punish workers. I've said it, and I've taken heat for it. Republicans hate working people. And it comes out in their policies. It comes out in what they do and what they put forth. And as I said the other day, it may be painful if a strike were to have happened. And it may have hurt. But ultimately, we in the working class have to stand with each other, shoulder to shoulder. When you hear about the conditions that these workers toil under, you would not tolerate it for yourself. Or at least I hope you wouldn't. And this idea that Republicans in the Senate wanted to push forth a resolution to say, no, we understand your life is not your own. We understand the conditions are dangerous. We understand the conditions are untenable for families. And we understand that it tears families apart. Now, remember, this is the party of family values here. You can come to no other conclusion that Republicans hate working people. Now, they do throw out this family values frame. And one of the things that they tried to do into the run-up of this is cause this division, that all this is just greedy workers. They're just demanding too much because they have the leverage. And look, they didn't ask for that much. Honestly, if it's me at the negotiation table, understand. If it's me, yeah, I'm asking for a 40-hour work week. I'm asking to be paid while I'm in the hotel after my rest is done. I'm asking for healthcare costs to be going the other way instead of going up. I'm asking for a lot of stuff, especially when you look at the reality. And the reality is the railroad industry made $20 billion in profit. Let that sink in. So for the people saying, well, they got this sweetheart deal and you're going to pay for it. The railroads have a sweetheart deal, and you most certainly are paying for it. Where's the outrage machine on that front? Where's the outrage machine that says there are two CEOs, the head of two of these rail companies, that are making $40 million apiece? Where's the outrage in that? Oh, no, those railroad guys are making $100,000 a year. Yeah, working 60, 80 hours a week, and then the off time isn't even their own. We got to fight the right fights. And this is what I've been saying for a long time. We got to get away from this right-left frame, the red hat frame, the blue hat frame. We got to get away from that and understand it has been and it always will be top down. It's always going to be the people in the ivory towers and the boardrooms and the penthouses looking down on the rest of us. And until we come back together and stand shoulder to shoulder, hold hands in solidarity, they're going to continue to exploit that, knowing that we're easily divided. I can easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. And, I just had this conversation with my daughter because she wants to do a school project. And I said, a great frame would be bullets, batons, briefcases. What's that? Well, we went from shooting workers who went on strike to beating them with clubs. And now we just use lawyers and legal tactics to starve them out. Look at what's going on down in Alabama with those workers who've been on strike it's over a year now, well over a year now. And all they want is what they were promised, a fair share of the wealth that they created. Is that too much to ask? Evidently in corporate shill land, that would be a sweetheart deal. I'll tell you this, though, if we did get a fair share, maybe that would be a sweetheart deal. One that I might even admit. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com.
There is nothing natural about the new scale of these disasters. They are the price of humanity's fossil fuel addiction.
New UN report warns world is heading into uncharted climate territory. August 2022 was the second hottest August ever recorded. Plus,
look, folks, the Great American Road Trip is going to be fully electrified. Charging stations will be up and easy to find as gas stations are now.
President Biden touts historic climate bill and national EV charging network.
If you say so, all of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The current fossil fuel free-for-all must end now.
Yes, we must end the current fossil fuel free-for-all. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, great news. The Earth is cooling. August wasn't that hot after all.
That would not be the way that scientists would recommend looking at the new record that NASA announced this week.
Oh, okay.
NASA announced that August 2022 was the second hottest August on record globally.
See, it's the second. Everything is getting better.
Since record keeping began in the mid-1800s, and in the wake of historic extreme heat waves across the entire northern hemisphere, NASA also confirmed that this was the hottest summer ever recorded globally in history, despite an ongoing La Niña event cooling the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, that's bad.
The UN's World Meteorological Organization has released its annual climate report in advance of the UN General Assembly in New York. The United in Science report warns that, quote, humanity's chances of avoiding the worst ravages of climate breakdown are diminishing rapidly because governments and corporations are failing to cut emissions fast enough. The new report confirms that extreme weather disasters are growing in frequency and intensity. There are now 5 times more weather-related disasters than 50 years ago. And climate-related disasters are causing $200 million in economic losses on average every day. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres cited this year's record-shattering heat waves and the biblical floods in Pakistan in sounding the alarm again.
This year's United in Science report shows climate impacts heading into uncharted territories of destruction. We are way off track. Climate action is stalling on key fronts, and the poorest countries and people are being hardest hit. But no country is immune.
Wow, sounds like a troubling report. I'm sure the Globe can't wait to not read it.
The report comes on the heels of a different study finding that the world is close to triggering 4 critical tipping points in the climate system and warns that if the world passes the threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming above pre-industrial levels, those tipping points will unleash more rapid and, in some cases, irreversible shifts in critical ecosystems. Unfortunately, Axios reports that coal use is surging. The global energy crisis caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a global drought curtailing hydroelectric power has forced power providers worldwide to boost consumption of dirty, emissions-intensive coal to meet electricity demand despite the damage to climate.
Good God.
But some good news, a fast transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy is not only feasible, but with the right investments will be way cheaper than maintaining current levels of fossil fuel use because of the falling cost of renewables. How much cheaper? $12 trillion cheaper by 2050,
Really?
according to a new analysis by Oxford University.
Wow, well, that's $12 trillion less the fossil fuel companies are going to receive.
The researchers slammed critics who falsely claim that a fast transition to clean energy is expensive. They say the faster the switch, the more money it saves. At the White House this week, President Biden and Democrats celebrated passage of the biggest climate bill in U.S. history, the Inflation Reduction Act, which invests $370 billion over 10 years in climate resilience and adaptation and shifting the nation to clean energy. And Biden also noted that all Republicans voted against the law.
This year, the American people won. The climate deniers lost.
And on Wednesday in Michigan, Biden announced that funding for the first ever national electric vehicle charging network has been approved for 35 states to begin construction.
35 states, what about the other 15?
And you can help your town fight climate change. NOAA has announced a new first-of-its-kind tool to help communities assess their exposure risk to different climate hazards like drought, heat, heat, fires, and floods and helps them access funding for climate resilience projects. You can find the Climate Mapping for Resilience and Adaptation portal at resilience.climate.gov.
For much more on that story and all of the other ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So remember when the Republicans used to claim to be 10th Amendment folks and states' rights and get government out of our lives? Remember those days? Yeah, the glory days. Yeah. Back when Republicans had an ideology, actually had a message that wasn't muddled and crazy because they don't really want you to know what they think. I'm looking at this Lindsey Graham thing, going to have a national abortion ban, which is just curious to me. And here to share some thoughts on what sense this makes in this moment for Lindsey Graham to completely jump the message and well, say the quiet part out loud. And here to share some of those thoughts, I've asked our good friend Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a columnist over at the Daily Beast. Check out their stuff at dailybeast.org. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the Lindsey Graham thing, because this is curious to me. I don't understand why in this moment, weeks before the midterm election, that you would do the opposite of what you've been saying and what you yourself actually said, that it's just going to revert back to the states and the states will decide. Why would you then put forth legislation to take a national ban and ram it down our throats?
Well, that's the question I think a lot of Republicans are asking right now. If you look at Tom Tillis, Mitt Romney, they seem to have been completely caught off guard by this. They don't want to talk about this. The minority leader, Mitch McConnell, has been instructing Senate candidates to avoid talking about abortion, take it off your websites. And this really puts it at the forefront. I mean, just 2 months ago, we were saying, Republicans were saying, this is a victory because it returns abortion to the states. And unless Lindsey Graham has been granted statehood, and I missed it, he's also claiming that the Senate now has federal power to do this as well, which is a position, quite frankly, that a lot of Senate Republicans don't agree with.
See, now this is one of these things, if I'm Chuck Schumer, this is one of those things where I go, okay, Lindsey, we're going to give you a vote. Where we put that out right in front of the American people and go, hey, we got an election coming up. We should know which side these folks are on.
Yeah, I think this vote would be pivotal in this election for putting Republicans on the record for where they really stand. And if you read the details of this abortion ban that Graham has proposed, it is extreme. It's not just that it bans abortion at 15 weeks. It puts in so many hurdles to claim an exception to get an abortion that it is functionally impossible, especially for minors. And it's going to hurt millions of people if this becomes law.
Well, isn't that the point? I mean, ultimately, I've said for years, at the heart of conservatism is cruelty.
Yeah, and Lindsey Graham opened very strong with saying this contains exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. What he didn't say is that you have to qualify for those. And in some cases, it is really insane. Like if a child has to have an abortion and they've been raped, they have to file a police report. The police have to present it to a doctor, and the parents have to agree. Now, that's crazy in a situation where most juvenile rapes are parents or guardians. So good luck getting your kid to the police station when you're the one who did it.
There's that. Can't argue with that. So the question I have, because some people have read the entire bill like you, and have told me that this is an extremely well thought out, well crafted piece of legislation for misery and cruelty. And it's not just something that, a weekend. This wasn't a weekender. This didn't just pop up. This is something that well thought out, well planned out, well plotted. So what do you say to this? Because, the message for so long had been even Graham himself said that's going to go back to the States. Why this now seems curious. And I can only come up with one viable explanation. Lindsey Graham has something against McConnell. That's the only thing that makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. Graham doesn't want McConnell to be majority leader again.
Yeah, and I don't think Graham has especially hid his distaste for McConnell on a regular basis. But you're right. I mean, this isn't a one-page Madison Cawthorn, I wrote it this afternoon bill. This is a very well-researched bill that has considered a lot of the challenges Democrats will lodge and has acted to make abortion harder to get. This is something that is similar to what Lindsey Graham has introduced in past years, but is different in a number of ways that makes it more severe. And the question I know that you have asked, that a lot of people have asked, is did Lindsey Graham's office write this, or was it handed his way? And either way, I mean, this is an individual in the Republican Party who is acting way outside what the party leadership wants and is doing something entirely for his own advancement, apparently.
Yeah, I guess he needed some time on Fox News, because that's, again, the only thing I can come up with in this moment. Because if I'm Chuck Schumer, and I said this before, if I'm Schumer, I put this up for a vote. This is one of those things you go, okay, Lindsey, you got a piece of legislation. We're going to put this up for a vote a couple of weeks before the election so that voters know which side Republicans are on.
Yeah. And the way this bill is written right now, you would get Republicans who vote against it. And I do think it's right for Chuck Schumer to say, let's have an up or down vote. We've always complained about not having just straight votes on bills. Give it to them on this, and in exchange, ask for a vote on the same-sex marriage bill. And let's show Americans where Republicans really are less than a year away from a major election.
Now you hit on an interesting topic today, the big news that they're going to, and I'm still scratching my head, that they're going to take Tammy Baldwin's bill to codify same-sex marriage into law, and they're going to push it off until after the election, which, look, I'm not the strategist here. I'm just a truck driver. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, even truck drivers get scheduling, and apparently the Senate doesn't. I mean, this is a bill that could be easily reintroduced for another vote and pass down the line. Right now, Democrats are saying they don't want to have this vote because Republicans haven't been able to come up with 10 Republicans to support it. In my mind, that's great for Democrats.
Yeah, isn't that the point?
Vote up, let them vote against something 72% of Americans support, and then let's bring it back up and maybe give them a chance to get it right the second time once voters are swarming their office.
Or maybe you bring it up every week for a vote, so that people are reminded every week that they're against this, because this is what Republicans would do, because it's what they've done. Yeah, I seem to think there was an issue. Maybe you've heard of it. The dreaded Obamacare. Remember Obamacare? They had that whole repeal, and what was it? The repeal.
I can't
thing.
Remember anymore. Lot of repeal votes.
Like 100 of them. And they knew they were never going to get the votes to do it, but they still kept throwing it out there because it fed the angry base. Can't Schumer and them take a lesson?
I would love to see it. I can't quite understand the logic of holding the same-sex marriage vote until after the election. I think this is something that, in light of what happened with the Supreme Court and abortion, this is not a safe issue. The Supreme Court has challenges to gay marriage on the docket for the next term. This is something American voters have said they want Democrats to do. It's something we can easily do. This is not an area where the Democratic Party is divided. And our interest in decorum and working with Republicans here is quite frankly harming our voters and even Americans who didn't vote for Democrats who would see their rights taken away just the same.
Yeah, see, this is one of those moments, and this is where I have a problem with the Democratic Party. This seems weak to me. This is where you hear people go, well, I've said this 1,000 times. In a street fight, the Democrats would be happy to hold your coat. I want them out there throwing some haymakers. I want them out there fighting the fight. And look, same-sex marriage, not my issue. Honestly, abortion isn't my issue. But I'm on a side of it that says I want my neighbors, my friends, my family members to have the same rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness as everybody else. Maybe that isn't my path, but it doesn't mean that we should be using our government to bludgeon people and to make things illegal. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And on a more basic level, too, I just reject the idea of giving Republicans who are in the minority control over the legislative schedule. I mean, this is not an agenda Republicans want to participate in. They've said that many times. So now it's on Democrats to act alone, as they have very successfully over the last few months with Joe Biden. This is not something we should be afraid of. The American people are strongly with us on same-sex marriage, and not doing it actually, I think, reflects much worse on the party.
Yeah, and look, if I'm the leader, and nobody would put me as leader, so let's just start there. I'm voting on this. I'm voting on Graham's bill, and I'm voting on a contraception bill. In fact, I'm voting on it to make it available for free to people who want and need it because, well, I want people to have opportunities to control the path of their lives. The idea of self-determination is important to me. And because I got two daughters that I hope are going to go as far as their talents and their work ethic and their want takes them, not being saddled with kids that they weren't planning on. This seems no-brainer to me and something that we should be talking about as a division between what Republicans are pushing, head in the sand, abstinence education, and worse, and what I view the future should be is people having choices.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. And it's indefensible that the reason we're waiting on this is because Susan Collins has told us that she's really working hard to get 10 Republicans. She thinks she can do it if we just wait a couple weeks. And I don't know that that has ever been a statement that has come true from her in her entire career in Congress. I have no idea why we're still waiting on her now.
Please tell me nobody's believing Susan. Please tell me nobody's buying the Susan Collins line. Nobody. Please tell me nobody.
I would like to say that, but it seems like for the last couple weeks, we've been letting Susan Collins sort of try and wrangle up votes because that's worked so well the past year and a half. But really, again, Republicans are running down the clock. And Republicans, for their part, are happy to humor Susan Collins and keep her fishing for weeks because the Republican Party doesn't stand behind Susan Collins. They're happy to treat her like a Democrat. And that's to the detriment not only of the Senate, but of the American people.
Yeah, no, this is one of these things where Democrats, you should start like a steamroller training school, because when Republicans have power, they know what they want. You go back to the Trump years, they knew they wanted tax cuts. That's all they wanted. That's all they got. They drove the steamroller. They got what they wanted. I think someone's got to teach Democrats how to do this a little bit better on other issues. Now, look, I'm thrilled with the stuff that we've gotten so far. I don't want to beat up Biden and the administration for, we got the CHIPS bill, we got the infrastructure bill, we got the Inflation Reduction Act that's going to create jobs, reshore manufacturing, hopefully move us in a better, more prosperous working class type environment. But this kind of stuff, kind of important too.
Yeah. And let's be clear, the same-sex marriage bill is not on Joe Biden. He wants this to go. He's got his fighting aviator sunglasses ready for some big speeches. This is the Senate trying to find consensus. And my guess is they want to say, well, we exhausted every option. We tried to reach out to Republicans. But the fact is the clock's ticking. I mean, I said earlier, less than a year before elections, my brain is fried. It's 2 months away. No. There is simply not time to wait on major legislation, because we will get nothing done in a lame duck session, guaranteed.
So let me ask you about that, Max. And you're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Max Burns, columnist at the Daily Beast. Because Biden has said if Republicans take the House or the Senate or both, it's going to be a long 2 years, and the veto pendant's the only thing that's going to get any use. I think having that conversation about, do we want to move the country forward? Do we want to continue down the path of progress? Or do we want to rip the rug out from reshoring manufacturing and creating good union jobs and dealing with climate change issues? Or do we want to, just keep our head in the sand and keep down the path we're going? I think that conversation has to be thrown out there. And I think Democrats aren't doing a good job of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's not happening now is malpractice. We've seen what Republicans have said they want to do when they take power. They want to impeach Joe Biden. They want to hold an investigation of Merrick Garland and the DOJ. They want to ban abortion, largely without functional exceptions. They want to roll back everything Joe Biden has done. This presidency will not get much done in a divided Congress. And I think Joe Biden has acknowledged that, which makes it all the more confusing why we're treating these last 2 months as if they're just a leisurely victory walk, when the polls seem to show that, well, Democrats may hold the Senate, they will likely not hold the House. So it's time to get moving on this big legislation.
No, it's time to get something done. Absolutely. Because you say they want to repeal the handful of things that you rolled out. I say they want to repeal the entire 20th century, which has been the main goal of theirs for a very long time. Last thing I want to ask you about, because I've gotten a lot of questions about Ron Desantis and the latest scheme that he stole from the governor of Texas, which is basically human trafficking people from his state to other places. In this latest bit, I guess they sent 2 charter planes of Venezuelan migrants to Martha's Vineyard. I know this plays well with his base, but this seems like it could be, illegal.
Yeah, it is truly a surreal moment we're in, where the governor of Florida holds a press conference to proudly announce he's discovered how to kidnap people, and that he's just going to put them on buses, tell them they're going somewhere they're not, and hope for the best. That is definitionally kidnapping. And the attorneys general for the states where this is happening are noting that. I mean, he didn't even take Floridian immigrants. He went to Texas, kidnapped them from there, and then took them somewhere else. There is no legal foundation for what he's doing. He's simply counting on the DOJ to not act and to not press this issue.
So now, given that, he went across state lines to commit a crime. Again, the criming never seems to end. And yet you're going to hear from the right-wing supporters, they're just fighting for American people.
Yeah, I mean, every state line that bus crossed is another set of federal kidnapping charges. And I'm not being hyperbolic. If you read the definitions of kidnapping, it is quite literally what he did. He promised fraudulently that these people were going to be sent somewhere with jobs and care, put them on a bus, and they didn't find out until they were almost at their destination that they were going somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
No, this is people have been jailed for that.
This is another one of those moments, Max, where if you or I did something, and you look at the fact that Reality Winner came out and said, I took one document, got over 4 years. Trump has hundreds. It's kind of ironic that he went and prosecuted her. This is one of those things where when they break the law, it's not a big deal. But had you or I driven that bus from Texas to Massachusetts, we'd be in silver bracelets and in a 6x8 cell waiting for the rest of our lives to be locked away.
Yeah, and what people aren't talking about enough is that DeSantis has actually put the bus company operators in significant legal jeopardy as well for their role in this. And we're seeing Congress start to reach out to those organizations to learn about what they were told, if the governor defrauded them as well with his explanation. But this is something that I don't think is going away. And the only silver lining of this is the compassion of the people at the place where those immigrants arrived in Martha's Vineyard has been incredible. And it has truly been a contrast between the coldness of the Republicans and the willingness of people from all over to help these people and make them feel at home.
Yeah, the cruelty of conservatism. And that's good to hear. Max, as always, I appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to talk to you again.
Thanks again.
Our good friend Max Burns. Make sure you check out the incredible work that he does over at the Daily Beast. TheDailyBeast.com, the website. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
A couple of emails during the break yelling at me for attacking Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, saying that they just don't have the votes. And I'm going, yeah, that's kind of the point. Kind of the point in holding votes that aren't going to pass are so that you can go to the voters and say, hey, folks, what do you think of this issue? Well, your representative doesn't think the same way. Maybe you might want to change representatives. And there's this little thing coming up. Maybe you've heard of it. There's an election coming up sometime in November. We usually do that on a Tuesday. You might have heard, might even be registered for it. And I'm hoping everyone is registered for it. This is one of these moments where you go, we put people on the record. And look, Republicans do this masterfully. It's what they've spent years doing. Think about the Benghazi hearing. They knew there was nothing there. They knew it was a horribly tragic event that I would argue they themselves had a lot to do with because of Screwquester, because all the money that they demanded be sucked out of our operation, our government operations. Maybe if we had more people there, maybe if we had go down the list, or maybe had they gotten the hell out when there was that's supposed to happen. But no, they never let a tragedy, they never let a crisis go to waste. And they cash in on it. Now remember, this is the party of fiscal responsibility. This is the party of family values. This is supposedly that party. Squandering resources and literally destroying families. I mean, look, I look at the same-sex marriage bill. I don't know why you wouldn't have run that. I don't know why you wouldn't run that every day. Up or down vote every day. Have you come around yet? Have your constituents hammered you enough yet to say support it? Because remember, they're representatives of we the people. Kind of important that they represent the people. And if the people in that state, in that district, don't agree with those positions, maybe they vote somebody else in. That's how a representative democratic system works. And to have them say we're going to hold this off until after the election is curious to me. It's almost the same kind of bizarre mentality of Lindsey Graham coming out with a national abortion ban. It doesn't fit for me. So I got to think that this is, Lindsey trying to push the envelope even further, trying to get his people to maybe be more on the record to fight the good fight because the base wants it. I don't know. But it's interesting that in this timing that you would go completely opposite the message. And remember, they've told us for decades now that they're about the 10th Amendment. They're about states' rights. That this issue shouldn't be a federal issue. The federal government should do nothing. And yet, this is the scary part. And remember this come election time. Because when Republicans get power, they know how to use it. And they know how to abuse it. If we end up with a Republican Congress, it's going to be a long 2 years until 2024. Filled with frivolous investigations, nonsensical impeachment hearings. You name the distraction, you name the divisiveness designed to rip us apart and keep us hating each other, they're going to do it. And why? Why? Well, for their own gain, of course, because they're not afraid of you. They're not afraid of the voters. Because they know, one, they've rigged the system well enough, and two, they're in the pockets of the wealth class of this country. And you go, but Democrats are too. And you go, yeah, then we vote them out too. Two wrongs don't make a right, folks. Seems simple to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me the angry emails. I do answer those first. And then the goofy ones. I got a couple of goofy ones that I don't even understand. I do respond to that as well. So Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931. That was the day that came to be known as the Invergordon Mutiny in Scotland. The global depression had begun to sweep across Europe. In response to the economic crisis, the British government began cutting the pay of public sector workers. This included those in the armed forces. This came at a time when more workers were joining the armed forces because of the rising unemployment that ravaged the private sector. For those in the Navy, the proposed pay cuts were 10% for officers and as high as 25% for those under the rank of petty officer. As news of the pay cuts spread, sailors at Invergordon held meetings to discuss their response. Invergordon, Scotland had become an important harbor for the British fleet during World War I. The sailors decided to strike. On the day of the strike, several ships were scheduled to participate in exercises. But the sailors on 4 vessels refused to take their ships out of the harbor. Many men did not report for duty. Naval leaders gave in quickly, reducing the severity of the pay cuts. But many of the leaders of the strike faced reprisals. Some were jailed. Others were drummed out of the Navy. Spies for the Admiralty went below decks to monitor the sailors and report those who might cause future trouble. Government leaders tried to keep the news of the strike out of the news. But workers' rallies against public sector cuts spread to cities like Glasgow and London. The strike also caused a panic at the London Stock Exchange.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
What makes a newspaper great? Many say it's having street-savvy reporters and editors with the integrity to shine the light of investigative journalism on the power structure's abuses. But no, says Fred Ryan, top executive of the Washington Post. The secret is attendance. Ryan, a corporate manager and former Ronald Reagan staffer, was handpicked to be CEO of the legendary paper by Jeff Bezos in 2014 when the Amazon billionaire bought the Post. But on Ryan's watch, readership is in decline, which he blames on newsroom sluggards who don't spend enough time in the office. So he's become the hall monitor, measuring reporters' productivity by their office attendance. Fred seems unaware that a good reporter's real work is out on the beat, not sitting in front of a computer. No doubt he would have fired Woodward and Bernstein for being out of office so often to meet with Deep Throat to uncover Nixon's Watergate scandal. In fairness, though, he apparently has a 2-part plan to boost team spirit. 1, eliminate 100 reporters. And 2, judge the output of those remaining by counting the number of video conferences they attend each week. But that's hardly the totality of Ryan's innovations. The big news is that he's hired not 1 but 2 high-dollar PR firms to create a cutting-edge, quote, branding strategy for the Post. Already, they've come up with a spiffy new corporate slogan, "We don't just break news, we break ground." Wow, how great is that? Never mind that some wags have changed the second line to "We break wind." This is Jim Hightower saying, when overpaid incompetents like Ryan substitute slogans and computer metrics for real solutions, they're admitting that they are the problem. They don't know how to motivate and manage a creative workforce. They should resign in embarrassment.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So lots of fun and entertainment on the campaign trail. I got to tell you, the more Republicans open their mouth, the crazier they sound, and the more you can't believe anything, because I don't even think they know what their ideology is half the time. And here to share some thoughts on more of the fun, the opportunities to find out what they believe, they don't believe, what they know, what they don't know. I've asked our good friend Austin Linfante to come talk with us. Austin is the multimedia guru and reporter over at Heartland Signal. Heartland Signal, our radio partners over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. Make sure you check out their website, heartlandsignal.com. Austin, thanks for taking time for us.
Of course, thanks for having me. Very interesting week, and even though like the biggest news, and when you tune to like every cable TV show, is just a bunch of people walking down and seeing the Queen, but still eventful.
Yeah, well, no Trump, no Putin. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
So let's jump into some of the fun that's going on. Let's go to Georgia. Evidently, Brian Kemp maybe possibly leaked out some thoughts that gonna actually do the ban on contraception that people like me have been saying look out for I don't know, the last 17 years of doing this little program. Am I getting this right?
Oh yeah, you're basically getting it right. It's actually kind of funny. We're getting some heat because they're like, he didn't say exactly we did. Oh, he was going to do it, but he's a politician. He could have said no right then, and he didn't. He just said like, oh, we'll look into it. So for context, last week he was at a University of Georgia college Republicans event. Someone reported him asking, would he ban contraception? Now keep in mind he has some of the strongest anti-abortion states in Georgia, and they put that in place even before the Dobbs decision. And he had all the opportunity to say no, but he's basically, this is a guy who doesn't know what Griswold versus Connecticut is, so he's just like, we'll look into it. It depends on what the legislature brings to my desk, but we'll definitely look into it. Had all the opportunity to say no, and he didn't. So basically, he has that on the table to ban contraception in Georgia.
Yeah. Now the question becomes, because I look at this guy in Minnesota, this Republican in Minnesota who so badly, bungled the abortion question, because there's part of me that goes, is it that they don't know what their position is, or they're really smart and trying not to say out loud what the position really is? I don't actually know, and I don't know. This is a good place for voters to look at candidates who don't either are going to lie to us and say, oh, we believe one thing, but really secretly it's about banning, it's about doing all the horrible stuff. I'm curious, thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because the executive editor at Heartland Signal, Tim Hogan, who is on your show occasionally, he basically he has talking about like this is just the dog finally catching the car after chasing it for over 50 years. Now that they don't know what to do. So this guy, Thomas Neck, he's running for a district. He's to be representative in a district a little southwest of Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. He basically got a very easy question of would you change abortion policy, yes or no? And he absolutely botched it. He basically says like we need more nuance, and I'll quote this very like word for word. I would say yes, abortion policy. End of sentence. Basically, they don't know what they want. I think they're starting to realize ever since the Kansas vote that that Roe versus Wade was kind of a popular decision, and people do like contraceptives and Plan B and I don't know, basic healthcare rights. But no, like they've had 50 years to do this. Thomas Neck looks like he's younger than 50. They had this whole lifetime to do this, and now that they're here, they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
Well, they say they don't know. We know what they want. They want like full Handmaid's Tale, just get rid of everything, just to.
No, they want women barefoot and pregnant back in the kitchen. I say this all the time. They want women barefoot and pregnant back in the kitchen, blacks in the fields, gays back in the closet. I don't know why they don't just come out and say that, because we know it. I mean, we know. Just say it and at least be honest. I would respect that a lot more than this kind of mealy mouth gook that we get.
Yeah, if this was like 10 years ago, then of course I would say, oh, he's just being a politician. But if he just came out and said that, and like, oh, I just want no abortion, no contraception, no women barefoot in the kitchen, a little army of babies of Christian nationalists, I don't think he'd lose that many voters, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the scary part. I love the fact that it seems to be like Herschel Walker has taken over the media training for a lot of Republican candidates. I would say yes, abortion policy. That sounds like a Herschel Walkerism.
Oh God, yeah, that's gonna.
Am I being mean? Am I being unfair to Herschel? I mean, look, he's taken a lot of hits to the head. There's part of me, honestly, that feels bad, but there's also part of me that goes, look, this guy's running for Senate. We should have better.
Yeah, and not to mention that Georgia Republicans knew that this train wreck was coming a mile away, and they just let it happen. They said, "Oh, Trump liked the football guy. Let's see how this goes."
While we're in Minnesota, let's talk about the pro police folks who. Let's go there. Let's go with this Kate Lee Johnston woman, or her report on the Minnesota Republicans.
Yeah, so one of the big talking points is in this midterm election is about crime, and Republicans trying to say, "Oh, we're the pro police, pro criminal justice party. We're gonna back blue, that sort of thing." And if you look at Minnesota, the people that they're trying out, they're not exactly they're not exactly pro police or pro military by any sense. You would think that'd be weird to say, but like these are people who said use the phrase quote homo military, referring to the repeal of don't ask don't tell, don't ask don't tell. And then people who another guy Aaron Henning, he's running for House District 14B. He back in 2012 would say, "I wish there were fewer cows in my restaurant," and basically said that this smells like bacon whenever they walk through.
Wow. Well, I guess depending on if this is the January 6th kind of mentality of support for police by stabbing them with flags and beating them, I guess that's the kind. Would that be considered pro police, pro military in that vein?
Well, the thing is that some of these are even predate January 6th. These are just what they had, and it's just kind of a general disdain for anything, for not being to do exactly what they want. So it's especially weird because they could have easily scrubbed this. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of like campaign 101. Like, unless you're running for like auditor of a town of like 10 people, you should probably get someone to scrub your social media. So anything that's this blatant doesn't get through.
No, you're right. This is, anytime I advise candidates on if they're going to run and what they should do, the first thing I say is check your closet. Make sure that your skeletons are either well hidden or aren't any, or that you get out ahead of them. Clearly stuff that should have been there. But here's the weird thing, and this is kind of a good opportunity. I look at Minnesota where the governor's race doesn't even look close. So it looks like maybe voters are possibly gonna hold these people accountable for being so off the beaten path, so crazy.
Yeah, so Minnesota is a very interesting case. So a lot of the news right now is the narrowing of a bunch of the races and just how well can we trust these polls, considering that they botched it in 2016 and 2020. But really, Tim Walz has such a big lead in Minnesota. Like, some polls have him over 18 percentage points over his Republican rival, which is Dr. Scott Jensen. And we've talked about Dr. Scott Jensen a whole lot. Basically, he's one of the big COVID deniers. He got banned from TikTok for spreading repeated misinformation. This is the guy who compared abortion to the Holocaust. His running mate said that rape doesn't heal, or abortion doesn't heal rape. Heal rape victim. Basically, very much like you talked about earlier, the barefoot women in the kitchen, that sort of thing, and they're just an absolute embarrassment. And now, keep in mind, this is back from. Well, let me bring it up. The last time that he ran, which was 2018, that was a favorable year for Democrats because that was Trump in office. That was we were expecting the blue wave. Right. The incumbent Tim Walz won by 11 percentage points. He's poised to do even better than that in a year that should be a red wave.
Yeah, well, the more they know about this guy, the more they're pushing the other way. And that's a good thing. This is a good sign. I got to tell you, it gives me hope when I hear stories like this and I see stories like this, because it says maybe we're not as crazy as the mainstream corporate-controlled media keeps painting us. You listen to The Rick Smith Show here with Austin Linfante, multimedia guru and reporter over at Heartland Signal, heartlandsignal.com, their website, our radio partner over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. Make sure you check out their website. Now, let's go to, since we're in Illinois, let's talk about there. You've got the gubernatorial nominee, this Darren Bailey's campaign. That calling your fair city, Chicago, a hellhole. Is it a hellhole?
And not that it wasn't even a gaffe. That's one of his main points. He repeats this at rallies. He repeats this at debates. He calls Chicago a hellhole because of our crime rate. But something came out this week, and it's been trending all through Chicago. He's renting an apartment in Chicago right now. He's originally from Southern Illinois. He's a farmer there. You can easily tell by his accent. But he's renting, not only is he renting an apartment here, he's renting an apartment on Michigan Avenue in one of the richest places, the former John Hancock building. Like, wow. He's basically staying at like the Ritz-Carlton of Ritz-Carltons of Chicago living.
I love Chicago. I think Chicago's a great place, but like anywhere you're going to go, any city, in many rural areas, there are parts that have high poverty and high crime. And if we had policies, I don't know, maybe a governor that would want to address those things. If we had policies that would, maybe close the massive inequality gap that we have in this country, give people open opportunity, create jobs, give people pathway to a prosperous working class kind of existence, maybe we wouldn't have those areas that have high crime rates. Just kind of a thought, spitballing off the top of my head.
Yeah, definitely an interesting thought. And like you said, like he basically hates Chicago too, because he wants to be there to immerse himself in the culture. His words, not mine. And even then, someone pitched him the next day. It's like, oh, you're gonna be riding public transportation too, right? He's like, yep, definitely am. Keep in mind, this is just some rich farmer who's about to take the red line and is probably gonna be absolutely scared and probably soil his pants a little bit. The moment,
but the hellhole frame comes from the S-hole frame from Trump. So this is a Trump wannabe thing. This is the kind of dog whistle that they're not even using dog whistles anymore, but it's what used to be the dog whistle for the extremists and the haters. That now they're just coming out with it. So this seems right in line with the MAGA hat wearing crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just what they are, and Pritzker's already going to be heading towards a really easy win, and this kind of just seals it. Basically this guy Pritzker's a billionaire and someone's outriching him. It's kind of amazing.
And this is my problem with politics as a whole. This is why we need massive campaign finance reform. I think we need publicly funded elections so that people like you, people like me, working class folks can actually run campaigns. And if you run a good campaign, you've got good ideas, you get elected. It's not how deep your pockets are. That's my problem with this whole system. Because on both sides, I'm sorry. I don't think, I know billionaires, may be benevolent and may think about the working class, but ultimately it's really about them and their ilk, because well, that's who they hang out with. Let me ask you about Kansas, as you brought Kansas up earlier. They've got a gubernatorial race going on. A little surprising hypocrisy on the money front.
Yep. I mean, are you really surprised about hypocrisy in the Republican Party? But yeah, Derek Schmidt is running against the Democratic governor there, Laura Kelly. He's like any other Republican, very against Biden's student loan forgiveness, which compared to what other people are pitching is very modest, but it's still enough to greatly affect people, myself included. So he's saying it's unfair to the people who didn't go, people unfair. We shouldn't be forgiving people who willingly took this money out. His running mate's husband, or his running mate, Katie Sorter, her husband got $40,000, I think even a little bit more, forgiven from the federal government through the paycheck protection program. So basically, they're getting loans forgiven by other people, but can't be for college students.
But that's different. They're the deserving crowd. They deserve this. It's good for them.
Yeah, bootstraps and everything. I looked at the farm that they did, and it's a very large farm. There's no sort of bootstraps or anything. Yeah. Like you can tell.
Wow.
But
here again, it's the world that we're in. Finally, let's wrap up in Ohio, where J.D. Vance evidently railing against electric vehicles. This is the weird thing for me, Austin. I look at, Wisconsin with Ron Johnson. I look at this guy. There are jobs that could be created. There are jobs being created. And you've got the senator from those states, either like in Ron Johnson's case, being okay with, maybe 1,000 good paying union jobs being moved to South Carolina where they were supposed to be in Wisconsin, and him being saying, oh, we got too many jobs as it is. And you got Vance who's railing against the future of Ohio. It seems kind of strange.
It is very strange because I feel like, because you see this a lot on like Fox News or TV, and they're trying to treat electric vehicles as a joke, and Vance is trying to get on that train. I would guess it would make sense if those factories weren't being built in Ohio. They are. General Motors, LG, Ford, they have already committed to building new EV plants and creating thousands of jobs, most likely union jobs as well. But Vance, no, he absolutely does not want that. He thinks that it's a waste of time, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care about any sort of EV wide. And I can tell you from personal experience, living in Cleveland, there's barely any EVs and absolutely none of that infrastructure. And that's probably going to change with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. One commute here in Chicago, there's more EVs on the road than I would see in the entirety of Cleveland.
Yeah,
like it's so weird just to see something like this innovative, and Vance just kind of nope.
Well, you got to stick to the ideology, and the ideology is keep the oil coming, keep the oil flowing, keep us hooked to the juice, man. So good stuff, Austin. As always, I appreciate the time. Excellent reporting. You guys at Heartland Signal do amazing work. I hope people will check out the website, heartlandsignal.com. Austin, thanks, man.
No problem. Thank you.
Good stuff, Austin Linfante, the multimedia guru and reporter there. Heartlandsignal.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back to wrap things up. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1845. 5,000 female workers at the Allegheny Cotton Mill went on strike for a 10-hour workday. The fast streams around Pittsburgh and Allegheny City were ideal to power cotton mills. The mills were overheated and filled with dangerous dust. Many of these women and child workers suffered from work-related lung diseases. The 7 factories of Allegheny City employed about 1,500 young women. These women earned between $2.50 and $6 a week. They worked from sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. Children made $3 a week at most. In 1843, factory owners cut wages even further. In the 1940s, a woman who had worked in the mills noted the ear filled with the noise of thousands of spindles. Anger over the deplorable working conditions grew. In early 1845, the women and children had had enough. They walked off the job and demanded a 10-hour workday and a living wage. Men supported them by gathering to protect the women from police attacks. After holding out for a month, the women began to return to work to survive. Some of the remaining strikers decided to try and remove the returning workers from the mills. They armed themselves with axes, but could not dislodge the workers. Public opinion turned against the striking women. Then, in September, workers marched on one of the largest area mills. The women broke down the factory gates and forcibly evicted the scab workers. The strike lasted for 6 months, but slowly, out of desperation, more and more of the women workers went back to the mills. Although the women did not get their demands, the strike drew national attention. On Independence Day in 1848, the Pennsylvania legislature put into effect a 10-hour day law. But sadly, the law had numerous loopholes and had no real enforcement. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, ricksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What's interesting, and again, we're in this weird moment where you've got these Republican politicians who are saying one thing, doing another thing. They're trying to straddle the line. And look, politicians do this, so it's not surprising. But, some of them are trying to say, hey, to their supporters, like Brian Kemp, hey, we're gonna ban abortion, while publicly to everybody else saying, well, we're not going to be that extreme. It's a states' rights issue, like the Republican message. It's a states' rights issue, but you got Lindsey Graham going, hey, let's have a national ban. The message is all over the place. There is one person who is really consistent, and that's the guy running for governor in my state of Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, who this week he shared this video that has gotten some attention that I think is well worth the look into. This is one of those things where this is kind of in a very short little video. This is where the future of where Republicans see the future going. Here's this video that Doug Mastriano on his personal Twitter account personally shared, and I would argue endorsed as the future of what should happen to women, our wives, our daughters, our mothers. This is the future right here, brought to us by this young woman. Here's the audio.
Feminism is a scam. A few years ago, I was an angry, blue-haired feminist. I once believed that male privilege was real and that I was a victim of the wage gap. Now that I understand the true motives of feminism, I know that this could not be further from the truth, and that modern-day feminism is a war on true masculinity. Before women had the right to vote, most were stay-at-home wives, which meant they weren't working jobs and couldn't be taxed. Our overlords didn't like that. Rockefeller started funding feminist campaigns in media, and as a consequence of the movement, women started entering the workforce and leaving the home. Children would then be separated from their parents and sent to Rockefeller-funded schools to be indoctrinated by the state. All of this ultimately disrupting the family unit at its core. Feminism is defined as the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. But in the West, I must ask, what rights do men have that women don't? Modern feminists are convincing women that hookup culture, using hormonal birth control, and not shaving is liberation. That toxic masculinity is prevalent and the patriarchy must be dismantled. Through movies and media, we're taught that working for the man, climbing the corporate ladder, and paying tax is more empowering and valuable than raising the next generation. Women have lost touch with our natural loving instincts, and birth rates are plummeting. Men and women are not the same. And by protesting for equality of outcome rather than opportunity, feminists are demonizing and emasculating men.
Demonizing and emasculating men. Emasculating them. Those feminists, those evil feminists. There's a war on true masculinity. You go, what are you talking about? Now, the weird thing is while she's going through this whole spiel about how they're emasculating men and women are losing touch with their natural loving instincts, and it's all about hookup culture and birth control and not shaving to those feminists. The line that caught my attention, and look, this has gotten a lot of attention from folks. The line that got mine is, by protesting for equality of outcome rather than opportunity, feminists are demonizing and emasculating men. And I'm going, wait a second, that doesn't quite jive. It doesn't quite jive, because what the whole video is about is taking women's ability to make choices away, because this is true propaganda to get people to think, women belong in the kitchen. They belong in the home. They shouldn't have a choice. And it was the evil Rockefellers. Now, I would make the argument that, yeah, it was the Rockefeller class that forced women into the workplace, but not by for what she's saying, but because they crushed unions' ability to have one income supporting a family. This is where, look, when my wife and I had children, we said somebody had to stay home. Could have been me if she would have made better money. This is the world that we want to get to, a place where, one parent should be able to stay home with their child. One parent should be able to support a family, but that's not the world we're in because of, probably the people who are pushing this video, the propagandists pushing this kind of stuff down our throats. But I just had to play that because this is Mastriano saying this is the world we want. Back to that frame, women barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, gays in the closet, blacks and minorities back in the field doing crummy low wage. This is the world. This is the angry white guy world. And he hasn't moved away from it. So I guess on a certain angle, you got to give him credit for, being the dirtbag that he is. Just my thoughts. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next